Sometimes a man's greatest strength is not in what he says, but in what he chooses not to say. No more reaching out. No more over-explaining. No more trying to prove your worth to someone who took your presence for granted. You were once the reliable voice in her world. A message she expected, a rhythm she grew used to. And when that rhythm breaks, it doesn't go unnoticed. That silence, it hits deeper than you think. Suddenly there's a void, one she never prepared for. No more check-ins, no more validation, just absence. And it's in that absence where the truth begins to surface. She might act like she doesn't care. She might keep posting, smiling, pretending. But make no mistake, she feels it. Because your silence, it's not emptiness, it's a shift in power. Women are intuitive. They can sense emotional distance before a single word is spoken. So when you pull back, she doesn't just notice the change. She feels the imbalance, and suddenly she's no longer sure of her place in your life. She'll wonder, did I lose him? Why did he stop reaching out? Was I wrong to think he'd always be there? But you don't answer those questions. You let the silence speak. Because this isn't about playing games, it's about standing firm. Most men fear being misunderstood. But Stoic men, they fear betraying themselves more. So instead of chasing, they choose stillness. Instead of explaining, they observe. And in doing so, they reveal the truth no words ever could. Silence, when rooted in self-respect, is not retreat. It's revelation. Sign number 1. Her panic reveals the truth. There's a quiet kind of shift that happens when a man stops chasing, not out of bitterness, not to prove a point, but because something in him has changed. He's no longer interested in proving his worth to someone who never recognized it in the first place. And the moment he goes silent, something unexpected happens. She panics. Not always with tears, not always with drama, but a subtle, creeping anxiety. That begins in her chest and grows louder with every passing hour of silence. Why? Because women are deeply attuned to energy. They sense changes in rhythm, especially when they're used to receiving attention. If you've been consistent, always there, checking in, showing care, your sudden silence won't just confuse her, it will destabilize her emotional footing. She'll start replaying the last conversation in her mind. Did she say something wrong? Was there a tone shift? Did she push you too far? More importantly, did you stop caring? That's the thought she fears the most. Not that you're busy, not that you're distracted, but that your silence means emotional detachment. And emotional detachment feels like rejection. For women who thrive on connection and emotional reassurance, your silence feels like being cast out of a world where they once held a place. So what does she do? She reaches out, sometimes subtly. A simple, "Hey, how are you?" Or a casual, "Haven't heard from you in a while." It seems harmless, but under that message is something deeper. It's a pulse of fear, an attempt to reconnect with the comfort your presence once gave her. And here's where most men fail. They get excited. They mistake her panic for genuine longing. And they jump back in, texting more, explaining everything, trying to rebuild the connection too fast. But that ruins the power of your silence. Because the truth is, your absence was never meant to punish her. It was meant to reveal her. If your presence meant something, she'll feel the gap you leave. And that feeling will guide her actions more honestly than her words ever could. When she panics, it's not just about missing you, it's about missing the version of herself that felt secure in your attention. And when that security disappears, so does the illusion of control. That's why she reaches out, not always to reconnect, but to see if she still matters. And here's your lesson. Don't overplay your response. Don't meet her panic with eagerness. Stay grounded. Reply if you choose, but from a place of composure, not desperation. Let her wonder. Let her sit with her questions. Because sometimes what shakes her is not your presence, but your stillness. Silence, when used with intention, becomes revelation. Sign number 2, when she pretends not to care. Not all silence is loud. Sometimes it's the mask that follows silence that speaks the most. When you stop reaching out to a woman, especially one who was used to your consistent presence, she might not panic. She might not even respond. Instead, she might do something far more calculated. She pretends you didn't matter. This isn't because she's cold. It's because she's protecting herself. Pretending not to care is her shield, her way of staying in control. When control feels like it's slipping through her fingers. For many women, showing emotion feels dangerous. It exposes vulnerability. And vulnerability? It's a risk, especially when pride is involved. So rather than admit your absence affects her, she'll act like it doesn't. She'll tell herself, and maybe even her friends, that you never meant much, that she's fine, that she's better off. But the truth is rarely in the words. It's in the effort to sound unaffected. Because people who are truly indifferent don't need to prove it. And yet, she'll post carefully curated photos, smiling wide, looking free, with captions that scream, "I'm doing just fine without you." She might not reply to your last message, but you'll notice she's suddenly more active online, more visible, more intentional about being seen. This isn't coincidence, it's performance. A quiet, emotional theater, meant for an audience of one, you. Because somewhere deep down, she hopes you'll see it. That you'll second-guess your silence. That you'll wonder if she's moved on, or if you were ever significant to her at all. But here's where most men go wrong. They take the bait. They assume her calm is genuine. They feel ignored. So they reach back out, trying to reclaim attention from someone who seems unmoved. And in doing so, they hand the power back. But if you stay grounded, if you hold your silence, you'll begin to see through the act. Because masks always crack. The performance can't last forever. And when she realizes her indifference isn't pulling you back, she's left alone with the truth. That your silence affected her more than she admitted, even to herself. She'll wonder, why isn't he chasing me? Why does he seem so at peace without me? Did I matter less than I thought? or more than I could handle. The illusion of control fades, and that's when the real feelings surface. So let her pretend, let her smile, let her broadcast her freedom, because silence isn't weakness, it's clarity, and while she's busy performing, you'll be busy evolving. Let her come to her own truth, in her own time, but don't fall for the act. What's real always shows itself after the pretending fades. Sign number 3, when she watches from the shadows. She won't call, she won't text, but she'll know exactly where you were last night. That's the paradox of silence in today's world. Even when you think you've disappeared, you're still visible, just not in the way you expect. When you stop contacting her, she doesn't always move on. Instead, she shifts tactics. She stops speaking and starts watching, silently, closely, obsessively. Social media becomes her lens into your world. She scrolls through your photos, deciphers your captions, tracks who comments and how often. She becomes the unseen observer of every move you make online. And while it may seem like curiosity, it's often much deeper. She's looking for connection, but on her terms. Terms that don't require her to be vulnerable, to break the silence, or to admit that she misses you. You might notice the signs. She's always one of the first to view your story. Your new post? She's seen it within seconds. You tag a friend? She checks their profile too. But she won't like it. She won't comment. Because interaction exposes emotion, and she's not ready to show her cards yet. This quiet stalking isn't harmless. It's rooted in a need to fill the void your silence has created. Before, she had access, direct and constant. Now, all she has are breadcrumbs, and she'll follow them. Because her mind can't settle until she knows if she still matters, if you're with someone else, if you've moved on, if you're really as unaffected as you seem. The worst mistake men make here is oversharing. They post too much. They try to provoke a reaction. They think if she sees their better life, she'll regret it. But all that does is hand her the power. Now she knows everything. There's no mystery left. No tension, no question marks. The better path is restraint. A quiet, controlled presence online. Post with purpose, not for attention. Share what feeds your soul, not your ego. Let her wonder. Let her ask herself why she keeps checking, why she still cares, why your silence feels louder than any message she's received. Because that's the beauty of true discipline. You don't need to say a word to make your presence felt. Sign number 4, when she sends you mixed signals. One moment, she's warm. She reacts to your post, sends a little text, something that makes you pause and wonder, is she coming back? But the next day, she's distant, cold, silent again. This back and forth isn't a glitch. It's a pattern, and it's not random, it's a test. She's watching how you respond. Do you leap at her every breadcrumb? Do you get excited when she comes close, then unravel when she pulls away? Mixed signals are not confusion. They are control. She's not unsure. She's measuring you. Because unpredictability keeps men hooked. It creates emotional chaos. It triggers that need for resolution. You start asking yourself, does she like me? Was that just politeness? Am I imagining it? And that mental loop, it binds you to her. Even when she's no longer offering real connection. Here's the truth. Most men fail this test. She texts, they reply in seconds. She disappears, they chase harder. And in doing so, they reveal everything. That she still has power, that she still controls the tempo of your emotions. But a man who's anchored doesn't play that game. He doesn't get swayed by inconsistency. He doesn't let her mood dictate his presence. Why? Because he values clarity over chaos. He doesn't seek attention. He seeks truth. So when the signals come, when she flirts and then ghosts, he doesn't chase. He observes. He remains calm. He chooses to stay grounded because he knows a woman who truly values a man doesn't play puzzles with his mind. She shows up with intention, not tricks. Mixed signals aren't affection. They're immaturity dressed as mystery. And trying to decode them is a waste of masculine energy. If her feelings were real, they'd be consistent. If her intentions were pure, they'd be clear. The real test isn't hers. It's yours. Can you hold your frame when everything feels uncertain? Can you resist the urge to chase what's unclear? Can you walk away from chaos without needing closure? That's power. That's control. And that's the kind of man she secretly hopes you'll become. Not the one who cracks when she vanishes. Not the one who dances every time she calls, but the one who stays still. So still that her games no longer reach you. And when she realizes that, she'll stop testing. Because the man who cannot be moved is the man who is finally respected. Sign number 5. When she begins to doubt herself. At first, she was sure that walking away from you was the right choice. Sure that life would feel lighter without your presence. She thought you'd chase. She assumed you'd reach out, trying to fix what she broke. But instead, you vanished. And in that quiet space you left behind, something unexpected happened. She didn't just wonder about you. She started to question herself. Was I too quick to let go? Did I push away a man who actually cared? What if he was better than I gave him credit for? That's the weight of your silence. It doesn't just echo in her inbox. It rattles around in her mind. You see, when you were there, messaging, showing care, you made her feel seen, valued. She may not have said it, but your presence was a mirror that made her feel worthy. Now that mirror is gone. And without it, she's forced to face something uncomfortable. Maybe she made a mistake. She starts remembering moments she overlooked. Your patience, your effort, the way you stayed when others would have left. Those memories grow louder in your absence, not because you changed, but because you disappeared. And this is where most men fall short. They get impatient. They want to remind her of their worth. So they break the silence, hoping she'll wake up. But what they don't realize is, the silence is what wakes her up. The stillness is what forces her to reflect. You don't need to argue for your value. You prove it by walking away with dignity. If you chase, she'll feel justified. If you stay calm and focused on yourself, you force her to carry the weight of her own decision. That's when doubt begins to bloom. Not from your words, from your absence. Women often act from emotion, and emotion shifts. But it only shifts when there's space to feel it. You create that space when you step back without resentment. So let her wonder. Let her replay the past in her mind. Let her sit in the silence and realize the kind of man she dismissed. Because in time, she'll come to understand. It wasn't just about losing a text message. It was about losing a man who would have stood by her when no one else would. And that regret? It doesn't need your validation. It grows all on its own. Sign number 6. When she tries to make you jealous. She doesn't send a text. She doesn't ask how you're doing. Instead, she posts a picture, a new guy, a party, a caption dripping with flirtation. At first glance, it looks like she's moved on. But don't be fooled. This isn't about happiness. It's about provoking. See, your silence unsettled her. When you were always available, she felt secure. She knew exactly where you stood. Always there. Always checking in. But when you pulled away, she lost that reassurance. Suddenly, she doesn't know if you still care. And that unknown, it eats at her. So she does what many do when they're uncertain. She tries to get a reaction. She wants to see if she still matters to you. Not through honest conversation, but through display. Jealousy becomes her weapon. Not because she wants love, but because she wants confirmation. If you comment, message, or even just view the post repeatedly, she wins. You've shown her you're still emotionally involved. But here's the truth. Her actions aren't about desire. They're about control. She's not trying to build something real with someone else. She's testing if she still holds space in your mind. It's not love, it's ego. And this is where many men slip. They react, they message, they spiral into comparison. They try to prove they're better than the new guy. But every reaction feeds her validation. You give her power back. Power that your silence had taken. So what should you do? Nothing. No response is the most powerful response. You don't need to match her energy. You need to rise above it. Stay focused on your path, on your growth. Let her wonder why her games no longer affect you. That's when the real shift happens. She'll realize that she no longer has the grip she once did. And that's when doubt creeps in. Not about you, but about her choices. Because here's the truth. If she had really moved on, she wouldn't need an audience. Real peace doesn't need performance. Real closure doesn't seek reaction. By staying still, you show her you're no longer emotionally available for her ego to play with. And that is the kind of strength that cannot be staged. Sign number 7. When she moves on in a flash. You pull away. No messages, no reactions, silence. And barely a few days later, she's glowing on social media. A photo with a new guy. A wine glass raised under candlelight, a caption that screams, "New beginnings." It looks like she's flourishing, like your absence didn't make the slightest dent. But don't be fooled. What you're witnessing isn't peace. It's a performance, not for the world, but for herself. Because your silence didn't go unnoticed. It unsettled her. It left a void where your attention used to be. And that void? It's loud. Women often process emotional discomfort differently than men. Instead of sitting with the ache, she moves. Fast. Into parties, into distractions, into the arms of someone new. Not out of love, but out of fear. Fear that she misjudged you. Fear that maybe you were the one. Fear that no one will care like you did. So she moves. Not forward, but sideways. This is what rebound really means. It's not romance. It's a coping mechanism, a patch over a wound that's still bleeding. And here's where most men go wrong. They see her smiling in a selfie with another guy, and they crumble. They feel erased, discarded. They try to win her back, prove their worth. Or worse, they chase someone else just to match her energy. But listen closely. This is not a competition. You don't need to react. You don't need to post back. You don't need to chase. Because your silence, it already said everything. It told her you won't beg. It told her you won't compete for someone who was unsure. It told her you're not a placeholder. You're a man with direction. Let her take the spotlight. Let her have her fun. Let her create the illusion of moving on. Because when the party ends, when the likes stop pouring in, when the excitement fades, all she'll be left with is the silence you left behind. And that silence, that's when she'll realize it wasn't attention she missed. It was connection. It wasn't noise she needed. It was meaning. So stay steady, stay silent, and let her discover what quick fixes can't replace. A man of quiet strength. Sign number 8. Her curiosity begins to whisper. You stopped reaching out. No texts, no calls, no likes. Just silence. At first, she might have shrugged it off, told herself it didn't matter, that maybe you got busy, lost interest, or simply moved on. But as the silence lingers, something subtle starts to shift. A question starts to echo quietly in her mind. What is he doing now? And that curiosity, it grows in the silence you left behind. See, when you were always present, checking in, sending messages, reacting to her stories, she never had to wonder. She knew where she stood with you. You were familiar, predictable, accessible. But now you're a mystery, and mystery demands attention. She starts checking your social media more often, not always to engage, but to observe. She lingers longer on your posts, watches your stories in silence, maybe even replays them. She might not say anything, but the fact that she's still watching says everything. Your absence creates space, and in that space, her imagination fills the gaps. Who is he talking to? Why isn't he reaching out? Has he found someone else? Did I matter to him at all? This curiosity isn't always rooted in love. Sometimes it's pride. Sometimes it's ego. Sometimes It's just the fear of being forgotten. But whatever the source, it keeps her looking. It keeps you in her thoughts. And here's where most men trip up. The moment they notice she's watching again, liking a post, asking mutual friends about them, or leaving a subtle comment, they jump to respond. They post more. They reach out. They try to fan the flame. But in doing so, they extinguish the very thing that made her curious in the first place. Curiosity lives in unanswered questions. It thrives in mystery. Once you explain everything, once you make yourself visible again, you remove the tension that made you powerful. So don't rush to fill in the blanks. Let her wonder. Let her sit with the not knowing. Because when a woman starts asking about you, even silently, even to herself, that means you've made an impact. Let your absence echo louder than any message could. Let your life speak for itself, quietly, confidently, without apology. And while she scrolls and guesses and re-watches, you keep building, keep growing, keep becoming the man who doesn't need to be noticed to be remembered. Because the truth is, when curiosity comes from silence, it often speaks louder than words ever will. Sign number 9. She turns the silence into your fault. When a man finally stops reaching out, the silence doesn't echo, it cuts. But instead of wondering why the quiet came, she rewrites the story so she can stay comfortable in her version of events. Suddenly, you're the cold one. You're the one who vanished. You're the villain in a story she refuses to look at honestly. But let's break it down for what it really is. You didn't disappear out of nowhere. You withdrew after trying, after calling, after caring, after showing up over and over, without it being returned. You were present until it hurt to be. But because your silence makes her uneasy, she needs someone to blame. And in her world, accountability is too heavy. So she points the finger. She stopped texting because he stopped trying. He just walked away. Men always ghost when they don't get their way. But that's not what happened. You went quiet because she stopped listening. You went silent because your voice, your effort, your presence were being ignored. And instead of recognizing that, she flips the script. It's classic emotional deflection. It's easier to accuse you of indifference than to admit she took you for granted. So, what do most men do when they hear the blame? They rush back. They try to explain themselves. They hand over their dignity, hoping to clear their name. But here's the hard truth. You don't owe anyone an apology for protecting your peace. Your absence was not revenge. It was self-respect. Because a man who knows his worth doesn't chase someone who made him feel optional. He doesn't justify healthy distance. He doesn't beg for understanding from someone who never tried to understand him in the first place. Let her tell others what makes her feel better. Let her say you were cold. Let her say you abandoned the connection. But you and silence both know the truth. You didn't walk away because you stopped caring. You walked away because you cared too much, for too long, alone. Your mistake wasn't silence. It was staying too long in a space that didn't honor you. So if she blames you, don't react. Let her sit in that discomfort. Let her realize what she had when it's no longer available to her. Stoic strength isn't loud. It's the calm refusal to shrink for someone's approval. Let her feel what life is like without your warmth, your presence, your energy, and let her blame the silence, because deep down, she knows the silence came after too many chances. Sign number 10. She respects you more than before. It's strange, isn't it? You pulled away, expecting her to forget you, to move on, to laugh with someone else. But something unexpected happens. She doesn't hate you. She doesn't pity you. She starts to respect you. Because when a man stops reaching out, not in anger, but in quiet certainty, he sends a message louder than words. He says, "I know my worth." And that, my friend, is a language women understand deeply. Most men are taught that persistence equals love, that if they just try hard enough, text enough, show enough, they'll eventually be chosen. But real respect isn't born from chasing, it's born from restraint. When you step back, you break the pattern. You stop handing over your power. You become the man who walks, not because he wants to hurt her, but because he refuses to hurt himself any longer. And that shift, that moment where you stop proving, stop pleading, stop waiting, that's when she looks at you differently. She realizes you're not like the others. You're not addicted to her attention. You're not dependent on her response. You're a man with boundaries. And boundaries, whether she admits it or not, are deeply attractive. At first, she may interpret your silence as distance, but over time, she senses it's something more powerful. It's discipline, it's emotional maturity, it's self-respect in action. You didn't block her, you didn't explode, you didn't beg, you just stepped back. And now, every time she opens her phone and doesn't see your name, she wonders, not in panic, not in pride, but with curiosity and quiet admiration. Because deep down, she respects a man who doesn't make noise to be noticed. She respects a man who knows that his absence is more powerful than empty presence. This doesn't mean she'll chase you. It doesn't guarantee love will return. But it does mean one thing. You are no longer invisible in her eyes. You are remembered differently. And that shift in perception, that's real power. So if you're wondering whether your silence was noticed, it was. And not with bitterness, but with a respect she didn't know how to give when you were still available. Men, let this be your reminder. A man who can walk away with grace is far more attractive than the man who stays, begging to be seen. Let your stillness speak. Let your absence echo. And if she respects you more than before, it's because, in a world full of noise, you chose the strength of silence. Here's the uncomfortable truth most men avoid. The moment you stop chasing her, you don't lose her. You find yourself. All your life, you've been taught that consistency wins, that if you keep showing up, keep texting, keep proving your worth, she'll eventually value you. But that's not how it works. The harder you chase, the more she drifts. The more available you are, the more she questions your worth. Because validation that's always on tap loses its value. But silence? Silence makes her wonder. It creates space. It resets the power. It tells her, without a single word, I will not beg for a place I'm not valued. And that message, spoken only through your stillness, commands more respect than 1,000 words ever could. You don't need her approval to feel complete. You don't need to prove your worth to someone who's unsure of theirs. Your strength lies in knowing when to stay and when to walk away. Most men panic when they're met with distance, but the Stoic man doesn't. He observes, he reflects, and then he decides. So if your silence is met with blame, confusion, or games, good. That means it's working. Because now she has to do the work. Now she has to ask herself what your absence means. And if you've ever been there, if you've ever gone quiet to protect your peace, drop a comment and share your story. You never know who you'll help. And if this message found you at the right moment, hit that like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.